Welcome to Season 4 of the Get Out of Teaching podcast presented by Larksong Enterprises. This podcast is for teachers who are considering leaving education but feel like they have no options. I'm your host, Elizabeth Diakos. I'm a career transition coach who guides overwhelmed teachers through a 5-step process out of education and into a life they love. I'd like to see a world where the work of teachers is valued and respected, and that teachers have a career pathway that enables them to continue to offer value to society beyond their work in the classroom. So in this season, we'll be speaking to other experts who help people to change careers, as well as a few ex-teachers who've forged a pathway into something new. So come along for the ride as we get out of teaching. Episode 11. Hi everyone and welcome to the show. On today's show, I'm very pleased to be speaking with Kylie Attwell, who is an author, curator, and a facilitator of self-transformation. Welcome to the show, Kylie.
Thanks, Elizabeth. I really appreciate being here and I can't wait to dive in further to the conversation.
Awesome. So, Kylie, as you know, I help teachers get out of teaching and into a life they love. And I put out the call on Source Bottle, which is a platform for people who want to find people to talk to about various things. And I'm really keen to talk to you because some of the things you wrote in your little bio that you sent me were really intriguing, especially around the self-transformation aspect. So can you give us a little bit of a picture about what a day in the life of Kylie Attwell looks like?
Oh, good question. But firstly, before I dive into that, I just really wanted to acknowledge just how difficult I think being a teacher would be. I, along with parenting, I think it would have to be one of the most difficult jobs ever. So my heart really goes out to you all, and I really applaud you for the courage that you've had to endure teaching for so long. It's something that I certainly, couldn't do. So yeah, I just wanted to acknowledge that before I start. So a day in my life involves predominantly, and this is a habit that I got into as part of the self-transformation, is actually just listening to how I feel moment to moment and actually responding to that. And I make sure that I practice self-care first before I actually undergo sort of any jobs and tasks that I need to do for the day. So it's really setting me up in good stead for what needs to unfold next. And I find that when I'm in a great mood and I've, taken care of myself, and I can get into some more specifics and, with that in a moment, that I'm then ready to actually tackle the things that I don't really want to do. And when I do get to tackle them, in the right headspace and the right state of being, they start to just come together and flow really, really easily. And so then I think, oh my goodness, that wasn't so bad. It wasn't half as arduous as I thought it might have been, before I set out on the mission. And I just find that life flows so much easier if I take the time to moment ask myself, how do I feel in this moment? And support myself by, enactioning what I need in that moment right there. And sometimes it can be that I'm triggered in a situation. So rather than, again, reacting and sort of, heading down the usual sort of pathway that I might head down, it's actually sort of removing myself from the situation if I possibly can, and actually then doing some inner work. And I know that that's not possible for everyone, but certainly when I'm being triggered, then that's a great opportunity for me to look at what's going on and then start to transform there using the different modalities that I use in my life. But a standard morning would be waking up with a cup of tea and listening to something inspirational. And the reason I do that is because when you, the few moments that you're first starting to wake up is when the brain's actually more susceptible to change and influence. So what you do in those first few moments, the moment you wake up, is pivotal for how the rest of your day is going to unfold. And it's actually similar before you go to bed as well. As you start to unwind, if there's, if you want to have a great night's sleep and wake up in a good mood the next day, I really encourage people to actually spend some time actually perhaps doing a gratitude practice, or even just reflecting on the day and actually highlighting the aspects of the day that went really well, something that you're really genuinely proud of, or felt that you achieved, and that you were just a highlight in your day. It could be a special moment that you had with your loved one or a pet, or anything, and something like that can be a really powerful way to start having a better night's sleep, and waking up in a better mood. So that's a small aspect of my day, but a big part of what I do is obviously write. I'm an author, and I actually help people build a life they love, and I do that by doing one-on-one guidance sessions with them, and energy assessments. And I can talk about that in more detail. But essentially what I'm doing is I'm actually determining what stage of the journey they're on, what's happening in their life, what's coming up for them. And then I introduce them to different modalities that will assist them, whether it to be release some trapped emotions, to get to know themselves better, to identify their purpose, to release any fears, doubts, negative self-talk that's actually holding them back from life. So that's a big part of what I do. I also do different modalities that allow people to, it really helps them shift anxiety and stress, and also do hands-on healing sessions as well. So that's a big component to my day.
Yeah, and the hands-on aspect, obviously you're not in lockdown, because that can't happen here in a lot of cases. But so, okay, going back to the cup of tea and those reflective practice in the morning, what are the other self-care practices that you employ that are successful for you? Because I think this audience that's listening or watching on YouTube at the moment for the Get Out of Teaching podcast, that's something that nearly every teacher I talk to has begun to neglect, those aspects of self-care and self-compassion, or they are taking on practices that look like self-care or self-compassion but are actually destructive, like, I don't know, binge watching Netflix, eating chocolate and drinking wine, for instance. I don't know how I know about any of those things, but, I think there is an aspect of that where we think of it as self-care, but actually it's self-destructive. And so I just wondered, what other things do you do that are restorative?
Look, there's so many little things. And look, I guess it's difficult for you because obviously you're in Melbourne at the moment. But, for me, going and having a really long walk is certainly one of my daily practices. And I was about to sort of say that right at the end, but we shifted on. But that for me is a time just to allow myself a moment to be out in nature, to move away from what I've been doing during the day. And, I used to do this when I was actually working full time too. I live in the city, but I would always walk home from work, almost regardless of how far away I lived from work.
Right.
I'd certainly have long walks. I could leave that work behind. So certainly, a big walk. Also too, I love baths. Magnesium baths are amazing for people. But self-care is really about, and this will be a big part of even Workbook 4 that I'll be working on in shortly, is actually about taking care of just your even your hair, your makeup, your clothing. And they sound like superficial things, but I don't know. I think every woman knows how amazing it feels when you've actually just been to the hairdresser and actually coming out, with a fresh cut.
Fabulous.
And feeling great.
Yeah.
And these things don't have to be super expensive. Just even learning how to do a little bit of makeup that suits, your face, your skin type, your age, just something to lift you, just simple little things like that. And you can, if you're wanting to purchase or sort of wanting to do it cost effectively, a lot of the makeup departments the makeup brands in the department stores, if you buy new makeup, to a certain value, that actually will give you a session where they'll actually do your makeup for you that's complimentary. And, you know, get them to do some like a bit of a tutorial and show you how to do your makeup for yourself. And there's heaps of stuff on YouTube. So just little things like that will make a huge difference, actually make the effort to actually, you know, wear clothes that aren't necessarily fashionable, but fit your body type and fit your, that are beautifully cut, that actually are made of lovely fabric that you feel really great and comfortable in. Something as small as that makes such a big difference, just how you're feeling day to day. So as I said, they're more surface things. And, you know, it's also really important is to go within and look at how you're feeling more on the inside as well, and doing the inner work. That's vital. But certainly those types of things on the surface, eating good food, you're always going to feel much better when you're eating good food. Again, it doesn't all have to be organic, but I would recommend, you know, just stuff that's fresh food rather than processed food. So that's another key component. Heaps of water. Water is really important. If it's cold, drink hot water with a bit of lemon in it. That will certainly help. But one thing I've noticed for myself is when I'm not in a good headspace and I'm not embracing the things that I love and I'm doing a job that I absolutely hate, I'm going to eat crap food. If I'm living a crap life, I'm going to eat crap food. So that's a part of it. So one of the best resources that I can highly recommend for people is to even pick up a copy of The Artist's Way. And being an art teacher, Elizabeth, you might have heard of The Artist's Way.
I've got it on my bookshelf behind me. It's there. You can't see it, but it's there.
It's one of the most deeply spiritual books that I've ever come across, and one of the most powerful self-transformation books, I think, on the market. When I share my story, I break it down into 7 chapters and I talk about what teachers influenced what stage of my life. And Julia Cameron and The Artist's Way influenced every single stage, so all 7 stages. And you know, really it's about getting in touch with who you are and all of your passions. And we can start to get into the difference between passion and purpose at the moment. You embracing your passions is absolutely essential for you to shift your headspace into to raise your vibration so that you're more emotionally buoyant. That's the whole reason for passions. And people mistake their passions for their purpose 9 times out of 10. They keep thinking, you know, I love cooking, so I should, you know, perhaps I should end up, you know, setting up a cafe or going to the catering business. No, you love cooking because it might just be one of the things that you're really passionate about. You're really passionate about great food. That's essentially, and we can go into it, you know, in a moment, because I know that you just really want to focus necessarily on.
Well, I think that's part of it, though. If you're going to transition into another career, working out the difference between passion and purpose is really important, because I often talk about, you know, finding work that aligns with your values and priorities, but I could equally have thrown in passion and purpose into that sentence, and that would be, you know, that would really resonate with people. So I guess I want to ask the question, how do we determine the difference between passion and purpose? Because I think we use them interchangeably a lot.
We absolutely do. And I think, you know, it's the likes of even Steve Jobs and Mark Zuckerberg. They've sort of said to you, you know, find your bliss and the rest will follow. You know, embrace your life's, embrace your passion. And I made that mistake. I finished school, went to uni, wanted to get a great stable career that I could, you know, have babies and come back to the workplace really easily. And I ended up becoming a radiographer, and it was fantastic. And as I said, I practiced that for about 8 years and got to the top of my career. within that time frame, but got to the point where I just was not fulfilled at all. Like, I literally got to the point where I had the house, I had the car, I had the career, didn't have the man, but had this, designer things and great social life, and was absolutely miserable on the inside and just couldn't work out what on earth was going on. So then I thought, well, I love architecture and design. Maybe I need to, try and, sort of go down that path. Do I go back to uni and study that? But I ended up going down that path and actually literally jumped off feet first, and ended up spending so much time and so many resources, like literally drained myself financially, because I embraced a passion rather than my purpose. And I know now that architecture and design are not my purpose. They are just something that I need to live in a beautiful home that's perhaps been architecturally designed. So that for me was a big learning curve. What that process actually taught me was that, as I said before, your passions are the things that bring you joy in that moment, and they're very emotionally driven. And we do them because they give us immense pleasure, but because they're emotionally driven, your emotions wane quite easily and quickly. So they're never actually going to fulfill you. Your purpose, on the other hand, is your contribution to humanity, and it's only through living your purpose will you actually have true fulfillment and meaning in your life. And I define purpose as a combination of the gifts that you were, your gifts and abilities that you were born with, so your innate gifts and abilities,
right.
The the skills that you acquire along the way. So, all of these amazing teachers out there have acquired, the gift of being able to educate people. So that's certainly a key skill that they've all got. But it's also the life experiences that you have, particularly the challenges that allow you to serve others in the way that only you can.
Yeah.
And for me, it was really about, struggling with self-confidence my entire life, and battling with anxiety and depression. How do I overcome that? I went on this massive inner journey, and I'd been searching high and low for over 16 years, trying to work out what on earth was wrong with me after having, by the time I was 28, had all the things that I thought would make me happy, and here I was miserable. And I truly thought there's something fundamentally wrong with me as a person. And so 16 years I'm searching, doing workshops and courses and changing careers, and just, the more I searched, the more confused and more miserable I became. And it wasn't until I had this transformational inner experience that I actually was pretty much led to all of the information that has become the foundation of the work that I do today. And that really set me in good stead to then obviously define the difference between passion and purpose.
Okay, wow. So you're a career changer as well.
Yes.
So how many careers have you had? Okay,
so from radiography, I started a small business doing bookbinding on the side. So that was I tried to transition from, as I said, radiography to something that was more creative. So the bookbinding on the side, I found it, whilst I absolutely loved it, I found it very labour intensive. And so that was almost like I was like my own little sweatshop. I'm trying to, bind suede and leather journals to then sell to others, and there's no way that the hourly rate was.
No, yeah, I've done some bookbinding because I did a printmaking degree, and we did a bit of that in the course, and it is a beautiful thing. But yeah, there's no way it's viable for most people unless you're in a really high end part of the world where people will pay a lot of money for something like that. Just even the paper's like $8 a meter or more. So yeah.
You can't make mistakes. So so that was the first sort of transition, and I didn't leave full-time work for that, but I then explored the architectural and design industry. So I became a tradie. I ended up setting up a spray metal finishes factory here in Brisbane to coat almost anything in metal. So, for example, we could take a front door that was made of MDF and coat it so that it looked like it had been cast out of solid bronze or stainless steel. And, we did a lot of signage and signage and sculptures, architectural components, that sort of thing. So that was sort of the next iteration, and I did that for about 6.5 years. And then I learnt to pour concrete in that time too, because we were doing cast concrete bench tops. And it was sort of like before that became really in vogue, right. And doing decorative glass finishing and all that sort of stuff. So that was sort of my tradie.
So it was was it a foundry that you were in, or like a foundry?
No, because we weren't actually casting.
Right.
Casting, we were actually using a liquid componentry to then spray onto the item. So it was actually really a binder with metal particles in it that then get sprayed on.
Cool. That sounds amazing.
Yeah, it was fun. It was truly fun. As I said, I got to be, creative and work with my hands, which again is another passion. But again, I know that, I'm better off going and doing like a pottery workshop or woodworking. They're my passions, but I'm not meant to build a life around them.
Yeah.
So that was that next stage. And then following that, because I could project manage, because I could manufacture things, I ended up, even prior to that, I did some work in with GHD Hair. They were doing their styler exchange. So I had to go and count hairstylers. And then whilst I was there working in their warehouse, they said to me, because you can project manage, why don't you come on board in our education team and sort of be like our project manager and event manager. So then I transitioned to sort of project and event managing, and put together all of the seminars that they do throughout Australia and New Zealand. And then as part of that, they did big hair fashion shows and things. So so that was my foray into the event management world. And from there, I became freelance event manager working for the likes of QPAC on Out of the Box Children's Festival. I've done the Asia Pacific Film Festival, World Science Festival, all of the events at South Bank Parklands, such as like Christmas and regional flavours and that kind of stuff. So that was the next iteration. And in the meantime, during all of that, I was searching, because I just knew that it wasn't my thing. Yep, it paid the bills, absolutely, no question. They were all great paying jobs, except for the metal finishes business. That was a huge financial drain. So as I said, in that time I was just searching, and then eventually came across all the tools that form part of the work, or the foundation of the work that I share now. And and as part of that, I share what worked. Well, pretty much I only share the tools that worked for me, because I spent thousands of dollars on complete dead ends and so many workshops that just weren't even worth it. So now I curate all of the modalities that I found the most useful. So it's not about me interpreting someone else's teachings. It's about me assembling them in the form of what I call a curriculum. So obviously the teachers relate to all of that, so that you literally know what stage of the journey you're on and what modalities will be appropriate for navigating each stage. So as an author, I'm not a traditional author. I'm actually just writing workbooks and a curriculum.
So tell us about what you've written, because I think that's something that, coming from outside or from overseas, and maybe we couldn't meet you, but at least we could maybe read your work. So can you explain a little bit about what you've written?
Yeah, absolutely. So the whole where I started out with all of this was that once I found this information that changed my life, I just wanted to share it with as many people as possible. And so what I did, and I thought the quickest and the best way that I could do that would be through building a website. So I built the website aguideforlife.com, and initially it was just I was sharing my story, and I was sharing, as part of that story, I was sharing introducing the teachers that changed my life, and then whether it be a workshop or a book, so what resources that they produced that then was a key component to that teaching. And so that's the way the website started out. All of that information is absolutely still there, and you can find that under the resources tab on the website. And what I needed to do was to really, and at first I wanted to create a procedure manual. I didn't want my story to be shared as part of it at all. But what I found when people were reviewing it, they said, Kylie, no one will ever read this. It's just literally like step A, step B, step C. People need to learn by you telling your story. So I weave my story into it, but I do so in a way that's very short and succinct, so that you're not, hearing this long-winded story. You're literally just getting the nuts and bolts of it, and you're just getting directed to the teachers and the resources straight away. And the thing about the website that's amazing is that you can use all the hyperlinks and sort of kind of, go down the rabbit holes that you feel drawn to. But the thing that some people struggle with is, well, how do I put this into action step by step? So that's where the workbooks came in. So the first workbook that I wrote is called Find Your Purpose, Change Your Life. And it's a guide for uncovering your life's calling to live it.
And I like your title at the top there, Build a Life You Love. I'm like, well, that's what I tell people I help them find too. So I love that.
Yeah. So that's essentially what I do. So step one is about finding your life's purpose rather than your passion. And your purpose is the thing that's going to give you true fulfillment and meaning in life. And the second workbook, which I've just finished and it's not out yet, I actually take delivery of it tomorrow, but I do have a printer's proof, and it's actually called Imagineer Your Ultimate Future. And it's actually a guide to bridging the gap between your current reality and the life of your dreams. And it's all centered around creative visualization. And it's through creative visualization, developing an emotive vision for your life that just fills you up on the inside. When you put the pen to paper and actually construct the framework first, and then the creative narrative of what your life will look like. And it's about building in the peak experiences from the past, as well as your hopes and dreams for the future into this ultimate day, and then creating that narrative around it so that you can literally smell it, touch it, and taste it, and then actually mentally rehearsing it. And a lot of my work weaves in the latest sort of in brain science and neuroscience, and what scientists have recently discovered is that the brain actually doesn't know the difference between a real and an imagined event. The same areas of the brain light up if you're experiencing something physically versus if you're just actually mentally rehearsing it. So you're actually just playing it out in your mind. And, elite athletes, celebrities, they know this trick. They've been using it for years. They're practicing the winning shot and celebrating their victory in their mind before it ever comes to pass. And so what I've found is that when you biochemically, so when you become your future self internally, that what happens is you naturally start to draw in the experiences and opportunities that will allow you to actually physically become that version of yourself that you've already created in your mind and actually started to enact and embody. And when I say enact, as part of the process that I walk you through in the book is actually starting to act as if as well. So not only are you mentally rehearsing it, and it's part of the process, you're creating a vision for your life, you're writing about it, but I also want you to start building a movie or that sort of captures that visually.
Right.
Incorporating music into it, because it's the music that when you hear the track after you've been mentally rehearsing it, you start to instantly play the scenes from the movie in your mind because you've heard the track.
Right.
Even smell.
Yeah. So like a theme of a movie, like, how you get those the people who just write movie themes, that sort of soundtrack in the background. Is that what you think it's sort of saying?
Absolutely. It's like, you're going to build a trailer for this ultimate life that you want to experience. And it's about feeling what it feels like to live that. And then as soon as you hear the track, or as soon as you see, firstly, you're going to start with the imagery and the music playing over the imagery. But then later, when you hear just the imagery, you'll start to see the images from the movie itself. And they say that once you hear the music and start to envisage the entire movie, you've created enough neural pathways for you literally to start creating your new reality. So that's very powerful as well. And I incorporate scent into that as well, because scent is an amazing anchor for recalling the past as well as the future. So you're wanting to create, ideally, a future fragrance. So selecting a future fragrance whilst you're watching the movie and listening to the soundtrack, and then every time you walk into the room,
you're almost recalling this future that you've created in your mind.
Exactly.
That could be the title of your next book.
I love it. Recall your future.
Yeah,
That's
I love
beautiful.
that. Okay, so Kylie, imagine that I'm a teacher and I'm stuck. I've been using the example of the imaginary Donna, who's 52. She's been teaching for a couple of decades. She's had enough. She feels undervalued, disrespected, and she can't get off the hamster wheel. And she's worried because she's on a nice salary position where she gets lots of nice income every week and it's very reliable. But she's thinking of moving into something new. And so she's either going to have to set up something of her own or become a novice in another industry, which is a challenge when you're in your 50s. What advice would you give to her? Like, in a nutshell, give us 2-minute little pithy, what should she do next?
Firstly, I wouldn't make any major sweeping changes to your life, because because you haven't done any inner work, you don't have the neurology, and you haven't rewired the subconscious mind yet. That would be in itself a recipe for disaster. You would end up where I was with the spray metal finishes. Ideally, I would be looking at going within, because what I've discovered during this process is that all of the change, if you want to change your outer world, it's not about changing your job, changing relationships, moving to another city. All of those things will only result in exactly the same experience, just under a person with the same
in
sort of
different context. Yeah,
exactly. So the idea is that in order to change your reality, you need to change your thoughts, feelings, beliefs, and actions. To do that, and I'm happy to share with you a framework that I've created that will get you started. And most of it's very simple. Most of it's free. It's about quietening the mind. If you can't quieten the mind, you're going to need to actually harness your mind in positive and productive ways. And I walk you through each of those stages. How you feel moment to moment influences what occurs in your life. So it's about practicing emotional self-management. So it's about incorporating the things into your life. So it's not necessarily about making the career change at this point, but you want to start actually becoming happy within your life by incorporating passions into your life to actually help you overcome this stage and actually lift you emotionally, so becoming more emotionally buoyant. And also too, we'll all have these fears and doubts and negative self-talk. So we want to release a lot of the emotional baggage that we're carrying around that's preventing us from becoming a full expression of ourselves. So as part of that, you're going to need to do some emotional release work, but certainly incorporating all the things into your life that make you feel better. So again, talking about, it could be simple as your hair, your clothes, that type of thing. So it's about practicing emotional self-management. You're going to need to do some work to shift your subconscious programming, the beliefs, the story that you've created about life, the fact that you can't make money doing something that you absolutely love. because that's just a program. There's people out there that are living their life, including myself, and they're being supported financially to do that.
Yeah.
So that's a story that we've created. So it's about, we need to shift that story so that you can be financially abundant and be supported to do what it is you truly love. And then it's about looking at the actions that you're taking. Are you living in full alignment with who you are at your very core? And so that's really important to actually understand, well, who am I? What is it that I truly love? And is every aspect of my life completely in alignment with that? Or am I doing things out of guilt? Am I doing stuff out of obligation? And if you're doing that, well, then we need to do some work on that so that you're not doing those things anymore. So I'm absolutely happy to share that framework. It will certainly get you started. As I said, most of it on there, is free.
So that's on your website, is that right?
Actually, it's not, but I will share it with you, Elizabeth, if you wanted to share it with the audience.
Okay, so maybe what we could do is put that into the link for that into the show notes for this episode, and then if people are listening now and they think, oh, I really want to find out more about what Kylie's doing and the framework, you can access that through the show notes for the episode. Okay, so
all of my clients, whether they have an energy assessment or they do a one-on-one session with me, I give that framework to them, because at the end of the day, I believe in self-sovereignty. I'm not here to be someone's practitioner or their coach, where I'm actually like seeing them week in and week out. It's not about that. All of the curriculum and my content is all about you having access to what's in my mind so that you can actually just self-manage. If you need me, it's about then coming back to me as a mentor, and that I might, be able to guide you to the next stage or nut out something specific for you. But I want to give you every single tool that you need to be able to successfully navigate life and build a life you love. So that's ultimately where that's at. So,
okay, that's huge. Thank you for sharing sharing that. And
I know that that's more than 2 minutes, but I do want to say that so that's kind of where they need to go is, so don't make any major sweeping changes, but and this is self-promotion here, but it's not truly. I'm only saying it because I've searched high and low, and I didn't come across the resources I needed to understand my purpose, but to potentially to get the book, Find Your Purpose, Change Your Life. And within that, there is 25 questions that will allow you to find your life's calling, or uncover your life's calling within. And the thing is, your life's calling is actually woven all throughout your life. You just need to know where to look and what questions to ask yourself. So everything that you've gone through to date will be giving you clues as to what your life's calling is. And one of the questions I include in the book is, and it might be a little bit more difficult because you're talking about maybe one career here for people, but for me, having had multiple career changes, it didn't matter what job I ever did and why I was employed to do it, what role I was doing. There was always a task that I took on that had nothing to do with the work that I was doing, but that I just couldn't help but do it because I felt that it would make a difference to the workplace. And for me, I was always, whether it be at school or at work, I was like the career counsellor. Like, everyone would come to me and tell me all of their problems, and I'd make them feel better about themselves. So it didn't matter what job I ended up being in. That's just what happened. Role I took on. And the other component to that is that I saw people getting in trouble for not really knowing how to do the work that they were doing. So what I would make sure is that I'd make sure that everyone knew how to do the job that they were meant to do. And as part of that, I'd write procedure manuals for people.
Right.
So what am I doing now? I'm a counsellor who writes procedure manuals on how to live life.
That's awesome. I love that. Yeah.
So it's just observing, well, what role have I been doing? And as a teacher, it might even be that, you part of it could be, that you're drawn to the counselling aspect. Part of it could even be, the best part of it that you love is more like organising social get-togethers with the fellow teachers or what have you. So there's just going to be all of these threads of information woven all throughout your life, and you've just got to dig them out. And as I said, it's just knowing what questions to ask yourself.
Yeah.
And other bits and pieces, or another question can be is there some sort of information that people share with you that like no one else would get that type of information? Like is there some content that people come and just pour their heart out to you that anyone else would find so difficult to get? And I've had really extreme cases of people that share examples of that with me. And one woman told me that these women would constantly be talking to her about their menstruation problems. And so she in the end, it was a big part of her life journey was because she struggled with menstruation and even getting pregnant and things. A big part of what she does now is actually help women with menstruation and understanding it, and she even puts like plays on and things like that to help like reiterate some of the content that she uses. But just crazy stuff like that. I mean, no one comes and talks to you about those things. So yeah, it's just fascinating when you start to dig a little bit. It's like people, for me, I'm on the street. People always come and ask me for directions.
Right.
So that's part of what I do. I direct people to the modalities that they need. And then even another question to ask yourself is if money, time and resources weren't an option, what is it that you would absolutely give anything just to experience, to be able to learn or volunteer to do, or you just want to be there to be part of? Like you wouldn't care, as I said, if you were fully financially supported and you had all the time in the world, what on earth would you be doing with your spare time, and what would light you up on the inside? So it's about teasing out those bits and pieces. And then as part of the workbook, so aside from looking for the information from within, I also refer you to someone who is a specialist in career direction. And so for the last 25 years, they've actually been doing sessions with people, and within 1 hour, they will actually be able to impart to you your soul's purpose, and so what you're here to learn and what you're here to teach others this lifetime within a 1 hour session with that person. And they will give you that objective point of view. So you've got this subjective point of view. So you're looking for the answers within, and you're seeing the threads of it unfolding all throughout your life. And that's what those questions do, is they help tease that out, that information. And you want to see a really clear, you want to see, like in every single question that I ask, out of all the 25 questions, you want to see a really clear thread the entire way through as to what that purpose looks like. And then by having that session with the career direction counsellor, do they align? And then how do you feel about it? Does it just sound like the most exciting, most amazing thing that you could ever possibly do? Like, when I had the session myself, I was like, oh my God, that sounds amazing. Of course, I would absolutely want to do that. And it lit me up from the inside. But what undid me was, well, one, I don't even have the skills to do that. How could I possibly do it? How could I get paid to do that? Could I really do it? I just had all these fears, doubts, negative self-talk, and didn't know where to begin. But that's because I hadn't owned it by finding the threads within my own life. Whereas I was actually naturally doing it myself.
Yeah.
And these people, all of the teachers out there will innately actually be fulfilling their purpose in some way, shape or form within their own life. Your purpose is to be a full expression of yourself, and part of that is to contribute to humanity in the way that only you can, and your entire life has set you up for that experience. And it's a matter of identifying it and then removing any of those blocks that are holding you back from actually living it.
Beautiful. I love the sound of that.
it takes a bit
Simple,
more
but
work.
maybe not easy. All right. So, Kylie, as we wrap up our interview today, can I just ask you one further question? What's your favourite song?
My favourite song, and no one will ever know it and then have ever heard it because it's just about to be released, and it's actually called Purpose, and it was written by a woman in Spain who writes uplifting, catchy tunes, and it's all a part of Workbook 2, of you having fulfilled your future. So as part of working through Workbook 2, I want you to choose a soundtrack that's going to be the soundtrack of your life, and it's great to choose one that you might already know, that you really love, but the thing is, it's probably going to be associated with memories from the past. So it's about choosing a soundtrack that you've never even heard before, and if it's affirming what you want to create. So she's written themes around living your purpose, well-being, incredible health, love, just prosperity, just anything of wholeness, fulfillment. She's written all of these different themes, catchy tunes with these positive words and affirmations in them. And they're just amazing. They literally stick in your mind the first time you hear them. And she said to me, Kylie, I've written this one, and I wrote it because you inspired me to write it, and it's called Purpose, and I absolutely love it. She absolutely captured my personality in it, and so no one will know what it is, but it's Purpose by Amarita from Mind Songs.
So we probably need to put that link into the show notes as well for this episode. So I've been asking all my guests, like, what's your favorite song? And I've got some very weird, a weird collection of songs now, a quite eclectic mix. So we'll add that to the show notes. Thank you. And Kylie, I just say thank you so much it's been a really inspirational conversation. I'm sure that the people listening and watching this episode will come away feeling inspired and hopeful that there is a way forward if they want to start making some radical change in their life.
There absolutely is, Elizabeth. It's all about creating an intimate relationship with yourself and just eliminating all of those fears, doubts, and negative self-talk. I mean, ultimately, you have it within you. You don't even know how powerful you are, and that you have the opportunity to live the most inspiring and joyous and fulfilling and meaningful life. It's just about doing the inner work, and everything comes from within. And that's definitely where I'd be starting. No major changes for the moment. You can get to a point where you make those inner changes and work won't seem half as bad as what it might currently be feeling. But certainly you'll still be able to make that transition into that new fulfilling work that's going to be your unique contribution to humanity. And we need your contribution. So, you not doing this inner work is actually is a disservice to us. So I strongly encourage you to really, flick through that framework that I've created. And as I said, so much of it's free. Everything that I share with people is it's about being cost effective and really getting to the raw modalities and content as quickly as possible, as in a way that's as affordable as possible for everyone. It's not about selling people programs, and not everyone needs a full program of someone's. They just might need one particular book of theirs that will make a huge difference to their life.
Kylie Attwell, thank you so much for coming on the Get Out of Teaching podcast today.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. It's been my absolute pleasure, and I look forward to speaking with anyone who's happy to connect with me.
I hope you're enjoying the Get Out of Teaching podcast presented by Larksong Enterprises with your host, Elizabeth Diakos. Before you go, I just wanted to let you know about a couple of cool things I've been working on. The Get Out of Teaching Readiness Scorecard is a free quiz that helps you see how ready you are to leave teaching. I'm also running a webinar for teachers who are thinking of starting a business. That's on Wednesday, September the 29th at 11:30 a.m. AEST, that's Melbourne time. You can do the scorecard, book for the webinar, and find the show notes for this episode at www.larksong.com.au.